When my mother lifted that metal Statue of Liberty and brought it crashing down on my head, I didn't feel pain, only disbelief. I was holding my little girl in my arms, protecting her from the same hands that once held me. Blood blurred my vision, yet all I could think was, how did love turn into this? That night, the home I built with hope turned into a courtroom of betrayal, and the truth that followed destroyed everything. Before we begin, tell me honestly, do you believe a mother can ever go too far in anger? Or is every mother's action justified by love? And where are you watching my story from right now? My name is Tara, I'm 30 years old, and I live in New York City. If someone had told me a few years ago that I'd one day own a house here, a real house with wide windows, a tiny backyard, and enough sunlight to make my little girl laugh every morning, I would have smiled and called it a dream. But dreams have a strange way of coming true when you fight hard enough for them. My husband, Evan, and I spent years saving every possible dollar to build this life, and even now, when I wake up in our new home, it still feels unreal. Evan works as an IT support specialist for a tech company in Manhattan. He's quiet, patient, the kind of man who fixes broken things without making a sound. Sometimes when he's focused on his laptop, I watch him and think, that calm is the reason our world still stands. And then there's our daughter, Maya, 3 years old, curious, loud, full of questions that have no answers. She's the light that makes every struggle worth it. I work from home as a freelance graphic designer. Most of my days start with a cup of coffee and the sound of Maya's cartoons playing in the background while I sketch out designs for clients across the country. It's not easy balancing deadlines and motherhood, but there's a kind of peace in knowing that I'm building something of my own, something I never thought I'd have. When we finally bought this house, it wasn't just about space or money. It was about proof that I wasn't defined by my past or by the people who tried to make me feel small. Because there was a time, not long ago, when my own family stopped believing in me. My mother, Donna, used to say I was too soft for the real world. She said I lived in my own little dream, while my younger sister, Brianna, was the smart one. The one who could charm anyone, the one who understood life. Our father, Frank, tried to stay neutral, but he could never stand up to my mother's loud opinions. Years ago, he sold our old Brooklyn house and gave both of us $25,000 each as a wedding fund.
He wanted to be fair.
I saved mine for the future. Brianna spent hers on parties and shopping sprees. That difference between us became a quiet wall, a wall that my mother helped build brick by brick. Now, as I look around this new living room, with its cream walls and neatly arranged furniture, I can almost feel that past pressing against the windows, like it's waiting for an invitation back in. I tell myself it's over, that life is peaceful now, that I've finally built a world where anger and jealousy can't reach me. Evan says the same thing whenever I get quiet. He holds my hand and says, "Tara, they can't hurt you anymore." Still, there are nights when I lie awake, staring at the ceiling, remembering how silence feels heavier when it comes from your own family. Maybe that's why I wanted to invite everyone to our upcoming housewarming party. I told myself it was about forgiveness, about letting go, but deep down, maybe I just wanted my mother to look at me once, really look, and see that her soft daughter made it on her own. As I stand in the middle of the new house, watching Maya chase bubbles across the living room floor, a small voice inside me whispers that peace never lasts forever. And for the first time, I feel a chill run through me, not from the cold, but from a memory I've been trying to forget. I still remember the day my father sold our old house in Brooklyn. It was small, creaky, and always smelled faintly of coffee and paint, his two favorite things. He said the house had seen us grow up, but it was time to let it go. He wanted to use the money to give both his daughters a start in life. When the deal closed, he handed each of us an envelope, his eyes soft and proud. "It's $25,000 each," he said. "Use it wisely, girls. I worked for years to make this possible." I held that envelope like it was made of glass. It wasn't just money. It was my father's trust, his love wrapped in paper. I remember Brianna standing beside me, barely listening. She rolled her eyes, smiled, and said, "Relax, Dad. It's not like I'm going to waste it." But I knew that smile, the careless kind that hides recklessness behind charm. Back then, I was 24, newly engaged to Evan, still figuring out who I was. I wanted stability, something I could build a future on. Brianna, on the other hand, lived for the thrill of the moment. She had just broken up with a boyfriend, changed her hair twice in a month, and was planning another trip to Miami with her friends. Every time she talked about life, it sounded like a race. She was determined to lose beautifully. A few weeks after we got the money, Brianna bought herself a new car, an impulsive purchase that shocked even Mom. Donna scolded her for a minute but couldn't stay mad. "She's young," Mom said later. "Let her live a little." Yet when I deposited my check into a savings account, my mother looked at me and frowned. "You always think too small, Tara. Money is meant to be enjoyed, not hoarded." That moment still burns. She said it like saving was something shameful. Like I was afraid of life because I wasn't throwing parties or buying designer shoes. I remember smiling weakly and replying, "Maybe I just see money as responsibility." She didn't answer, but the silence between us stretched wider than it ever had before. Months passed, and the differences between us turned into quiet resentments. Brianna started complaining that Dad had been unfair, that I must have gotten more than she did because I always had things under control. When I tried to explain that I was simply careful, she laughed and said, "You just like to play the good girl." The day I told my family that Evan and I were using my savings to plan our wedding, Brianna showed up at my apartment furious. "You should help me out," she said, arms crossed, voice dripping with entitlement. "You don't need all that money. You have Evan now." I stared at her, stunned. "Brianna, Dad gave that to each of us equally. You spent yours. That's not my fault." Her face twisted. "You think you're better than me just because you saved yours?" That argument changed everything. Mom took Brianna's side, of course. She said I was being selfish, that family should share. But sharing only works when both people respect what's being shared. Brianna wanted to erase her mistakes with my hard work. After that, every phone call became shorter. Every visit colder. Holidays that used to mean laughter turned into awkward dinners where my mother would praise Brianna for every small thing she did while ignoring me completely. Even Dad began avoiding conflict, sitting quietly at the table, pretending not to notice the growing tension. When Evan and I got married, Brianna didn't come. She said she was sick, but I knew better. Mom barely smiled in the photos. I tried to pretend it didn't hurt, but the truth is, it did. It hurt to realize that love could fade not because of distance, but because of envy. Sometimes, I replay those memories and wonder when exactly my mother stopped seeing me as her daughter and started seeing me as competition. Maybe it was that day in Brooklyn when Dad handed us those envelopes. Maybe she saw how tightly I held mine and how loosely Brianna let hers slip away. That $25,000 was supposed to bring us closer together. Instead, it became the invisible wall that split our family in two. And even years later, as I stand in my new house surrounded by peace, I can still feel the weight of that envelope in my hand, like the beginning of a storm that never really passed. The day Evan and I signed the papers for our new home felt like a second wedding day, only quieter, more intimate, more real. It wasn't a castle or a mansion. It was a 2-story house on the outskirts of New York City, with soft beige walls and a little porch that smelled like pine every morning. But to us, it was everything. It was proof that all those nights of saving instead of splurging, all those sacrifices, were finally worth it. I still remember the look on Evan's face when we walked through the front door for the first time. His hand was warm around mine, his eyes brighter than I'd ever seen them. "We did it, Tara," he whispered. "We finally did it." He said it like he still couldn't believe it was real. I couldn't either. I pressed my hand against the wall, as if touching it would make the dream sink in deeper. Maya ran across the empty living room, her laughter echoing against the freshly painted walls. She was so happy, she didn't even notice her little shoes leaving tiny dust prints on the floor. That moment, that sound, her laughter, it felt like the house took its first breath with us. Evan picked her up, spun her around, and said, "This is your new castle, princess." She squealed, My castle, and wrapped her arms around his neck. I wanted to freeze that scene forever. My in-laws, Nancy and Harold, were over the moon when they heard we had finally bought the place. Nancy called right away, her voice full of pride. "You two deserve this," she said. "Hard work pays off, and you've both earned your peace." Harold even joked, "About time you stopped paying rent to strangers and started paying your own mortgage." We all laughed, and for once, everything felt perfect, normal, loving, stable. That night, while Evan and I unpacked boxes, I looked around and said softly, "It finally feels like home." He smiled and nodded. "Yeah," he said, "but it's not really home until we fill it with people." That's when he suggested hosting a housewarming party, a small celebration to mark our new beginning. I hesitated at first. The idea of inviting my family made my stomach twist. But Evan, always the optimist, said, "Maybe it's time to close old wounds, Tara. Maybe this house should start with forgiveness." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that people could change, that the years apart might have softened hearts. So I agreed. We decided to invite both families, his parents and sister, my parents, and Brianna and her husband, Mark. Evan handled the decorations and the guest list while I focused on the food and setting up the main hall. Over the next few days, the house began to transform. Evan hung fairy lights across the ceiling. Olivia helped me arrange flowers on the dining table, and Nancy brought over a few elegant decorations from her collection. One of them was a small metallic Statue of Liberty, about 10 inches tall, polished and heavy, a symbol, she said, of freedom and new beginnings. I placed it on the center table in the living room, not knowing how much meaning it would one day hold. The evening before the party, Evan and I sat outside on the porch after putting Maya to bed. The night air was cool, the city lights flickered in the distance, and the house behind us glowed softly through the windows. "Do you think they'll come?" he asked. "They'll come," I said, though my voice didn't sound as certain as I wanted it to. "Mom might complain, Brianna might act dramatic, but they'll come." He reached over and squeezed my hand. "No matter what happens, this is our home now. No one can take that from us." I nodded, feeling that familiar sting of emotion behind my eyes. For the first time in years, I felt safe enough to hope. The next morning, as sunlight poured through the kitchen window, I watched Maya standing on a chair, helping me mix cupcake batter. She got flour on her nose and laughed so hard, she nearly fell off the stool. I caught her just in time, pulling her close. "Careful, baby," I said, smiling. "We don't want you getting hurt before the party." I didn't know then how heavy those words would feel later. How, in just a few hours, everything I loved, the peace, the hope, the fragile bridge I was trying to rebuild, would come crashing down. But in that moment, everything was pure. The air smelled of sugar and new paint. The house was full of laughter, and for the first time in a long time, I dared to believe that maybe, just maybe, family could heal. The afternoon sunlight spilled through the living room windows, bouncing off the silver balloons and golden ribbons that Evan had hung earlier that morning. The house looked beautiful, warm, alive, and full of promise. The scent of baked lasagna and fresh cupcakes lingered in the air, while the soft hum of jazz music played in the background. Guests began to arrive one by one. Nancy and Harold brought a bottle of wine. Olivia carried a basket of flowers, and Frank came in smiling, his arms full of gifts for Maya. For a while, everything was perfect. Tara, wearing a cream dress and holding Maya's hand, moved through the crowd greeting everyone with quiet grace. She felt proud. After years of struggle, she finally stood in a house that was truly her own. When Nancy hugged her and whispered, "You did it, sweetheart," Tara felt her throat tighten. She had done it, against all odds, against every doubt. But as the doorbell rang again, her heart tightened. She didn't need to look to know who it was. Evan opened the door, and there stood Donna and Brianna. Both were dressed as if they were attending a gala instead of a family gathering. Donna's lips curved into a faint smile, cold and distant. Brianna's eyes scanned the house like she was inspecting something she wanted to break. "Well," Donna said, stepping in. "This is nice. Bigger than I expected." Her tone was sweet, but every word was sharp. Tara forced a smile. "Thank you, Mom. I'm glad you came." Brianna leaned closer to her sister and said softly, just loud enough for Tara to hear, "Yeah, I bet you are." Evan noticed the tension instantly. He approached them, ever the peacemaker. "We're really happy you could join us," he said kindly. Donna smiled at him. "Of course, dear. We wouldn't miss such a big day." The next hour passed in uneasy politeness. The guests mingled, laughter filled the air, but under the surface, a storm was brewing. Tara tried to stay calm, moving from one guest to another, checking the food, keeping Maya close. Brianna, however, couldn't resist small jabs, comments about how expensive everything looked, how lucky Tara must be to have a husband who could afford it all. Finally, as everyone gathered near the dining table for a toast, Donna raised her glass and said, "To new beginnings and to remembering where they come from." The room clapped politely, unaware of the hidden sting in her words. Tara smiled awkwardly and reached for Maya, who was sitting near her feet. Then, as the chatter resumed, Brianna cleared her throat dramatically. "Actually," she said loudly, drawing everyone's attention, "since we're talking about beginnings, I think it's time we talk about how this house was really bought." Tara froze. "What are you talking about?" Brianna smiled, a rehearsed, poisonous smile. "Oh, come on, Tara. Don't act so innocent. You know exactly what I mean. You used my $25,000 to pay for this house." The room fell silent. Even the music seemed to stop. Evan blinked in disbelief. "That's not true," he said calmly. But Brianna had come prepared. She reached into her purse and pulled out a folder. "These," she announced proudly, "are the receipts and bank statements that prove Tara used the money that belonged to me. She took what was mine." Tara's mouth went dry. "Those are fake, Brianna. You know it. You spent your money years ago on vacations and shopping." Donna stepped forward, her face filled with righteous fury. "Don't talk to your sister like that. She's been hurt enough because of your lies." "Lies?" Tara said, her voice trembling. "Mom, I never took anything from her. I worked for this house. Evan and I built this together." But Donna wasn't listening. She turned to the guests, her voice rising. "You all see how she talks to me? How she talks to her family. This is what success does. It makes people forget where they came from." Evan stepped closer to Tara protectively. "Mrs. Donovan," he said firmly, "that's enough. This isn't the place for her." But Brianna interrupted, slamming the folder onto the table. "Look, the proof is right here." The papers scattered across the table, fake receipts, forged documents, all stamped with fake dates. Some guests looked confused, others uncomfortable. Frank tried to speak, but Donna shot him a look that silenced him. Tara felt her heart race. She picked up one of the papers, her hand shaking. "These aren't even real. You think you can just make up lies and everyone will believe you." Brianna folded her arms, smirking. "People believe what they want to believe, Tara. And right now, they're seeing the truth." Nancy walked over quietly and picked up one of the sheets. Her eyes narrowed. "This doesn't look right," she said. "These aren't official records." But Donna snapped. "Stay out of this, Nancy. This is a family matter." Evan stepped in again, his voice firm now. "No, this is slander. You've crossed the line." Donna's eyes flared. "Watch your tone. You may have married my daughter, but you will not lecture me in my presence." The tension in the room became unbearable. Tara bent down to calm Maya, who had started to cry. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "It's okay, baby. Mommy's right here." When she stood up again, Donna was glaring at her, years of anger burning in her eyes. Tara took a deep breath. "Mom, please stop this. You know I didn't steal anything. You know Brianna's lying." Donna stepped closer, her voice low and dangerous. "You think you're better than us now, don't you? You and your fancy house and perfect life." Tara's voice rose slightly, trembling but brave. "No, Mom. I just wanted peace. I wanted you to be proud." For a split second, silence fell. Then Brianna scoffed loudly, and Donna's face hardened like stone. The air in the room turned cold. Tara could feel her pulse in her ears. She didn't know it yet, but this was the last calm moment before everything shattered. Donna's voice echoed through the hall, sharp and furious, slicing through the murmurs of guests. "You've embarrassed this family long enough," she shouted. "You stand here, flaunting a house built on stolen money, pretending you're innocent." Tara's chest tightened. She clutched Maya closer, feeling her tiny heartbeat flutter against her arm. "Mom, please," she said, her voice trembling. "Stop this. I didn't steal anything. You know I didn't." But Donna wasn't listening anymore. Years of jealousy, resentment, and bitterness flashed across her face. "Don't you dare talk back to me," she snapped. "After everything I did for you, this is how you repay me?" Brianna folded her arms, watching like it was a show she'd written herself. "Maybe you should tell everyone the truth, Tara," she said sweetly. "Before Mom does it for you." Tara took a step forward, her voice breaking. "The truth? The truth is that I saved my money. You didn't. You threw yours away. And now you're lying in front of everyone just to destroy me." Donna's breathing quickened. Her face turned crimson. "Liar," she screamed. "Ungrateful, selfish liar." Evan stepped in, standing protectively beside Tara. "That's enough," he said firmly. "You can leave right now before this gets worse." "Worse?" Donna hissed. "You think you can throw me out of my own daughter's house?" She looked around, her eyes wild. "This isn't her house. It's mine. It's built from my family's blood and my daughter's betrayal." The guests froze. Some exchanged awkward glances. Others quietly moved back. The air had turned electric. Tara's eyes filled with tears, but she stood her ground. "Mom, you've gone too far. I won't let you ruin this moment. Not again." Something in those words snapped whatever was left of Donna's restraint. She looked around the room, her gaze landing on the metallic Statue of Liberty on the coffee table, a decoration piece Nancy had brought earlier. It glimmered under the ceiling lights, small but heavy, about 10 inches tall. Before anyone could react, Donna's hand shot out. She grabbed the statue, her fingers curling tightly around its metal base. "You don't deserve this house," she shouted. "You don't deserve anything." Tara's eyes widened. "Mom, don't." But the words never finished. In a single furious motion, Donna lifted the statue high above her head and brought it crashing down. The sharp clang of metal hitting bone echoed through the room, followed by a scream. Evan's, maybe hers, she couldn't tell. Pain exploded through Tara's skull, blinding white, and she stumbled backward. Her vision blurred, colors melting into each other. Maya screamed, terrified. Tara's arms tightened around her daughter instinctively, protecting her as her legs gave way. She twisted her body mid-fall, making sure Maya didn't hit the ground. The child's small cry pierced the air as Tara hit the floor with a thud. Blood trickled down her forehead, warm and sticky. The statue rolled across the floor, clattering to a stop near Brianna's feet. For a moment, no one moved. The room was silent, frozen. Then chaos erupted. Nancy rushed forward, shouting for help. Harold grabbed Brianna's arm as she tried to back away. Frank's face turned pale as he stared at his fallen daughter. "Donna, what have you done?" he whispered, horrified. Evan dropped to his knees beside Tara, his voice shaking. "Tara, can you hear me?" He pressed his hand against the wound, trying to stop the bleeding. "Somebody call 911. Nancy had already pulled out her phone. "There's been an assault," she told the dispatcher, her voice trembling. "A woman's been injured. Please send an ambulance and the police now." Donna stood frozen in the middle of the room, her hands still trembling, eyes wide as if she couldn't comprehend what she'd done. "I didn't mean," she stammered. But her words were drowned by Maya's cries. Within minutes, sirens wailed in the distance. Evan held Tara's hand, whispering, "Stay with me, honey. Please. You're going to be okay." Tara blinked weakly, her vision dimming, but she managed to whisper, "Maya, make sure she's safe." Paramedics burst through the door moments later. The house was chaos, guests crying, police officers shouting orders. One paramedic knelt beside Tara, checking her pulse. She's responsive, he said quickly. Head injury, minor bleeding, possible concussion. Another gently took Maya from Evan's arms. We'll check the child, too. No. Tara gasped weakly. She's fine. I caught her. It's okay, ma'am, the medic said softly. We just need to be sure. Evan followed them out as they loaded Tara onto the stretcher. Maya was wrapped in a small pink blanket, clutching a teddy bear Nancy had handed her. The little girl looked frightened, but unharmed. She kept calling, Mommy? Mommy? As they placed them both in the ambulance. Donna tried to approach, tears streaming down her face, but a police officer blocked her. Ma'am, step back, he ordered. Another officer handcuffed her while Brianna shouted, Wait. She didn't mean to, but her voice broke when she saw the blood on the floor. As the ambulance doors closed, Evan sat beside Tara, holding her hand tightly. Her eyes fluttered open briefly and she whispered, Is Maya okay? She's fine, he said, his voice thick with emotion. You saved her, Tara. You saved her. A faint smile touched her lips before she closed her eyes again, exhaustion pulling her under. The ambulance sped through the city's streets, sirens blaring. Inside, a paramedic adjusted Tara's IV drip, while another checked Maya's vitals. The little one's clear, he said. No injuries, just scared. Evan exhaled shakily, brushing Maya's hair as she leaned against him. He looked down at Tara, pale but breathing steadily, and whispered, You did everything right, sweetheart. Everything. That night, under the flashing red lights of the ambulance, the home they had built with love turned into a crime scene, and a mother's rage had finally crossed the line between anger and tragedy. The sterile scent of antiseptic filled the hospital room when Tara opened her eyes. Her head ached, wrapped in bandages, and a soft IV drip hung beside her bed. Evan sat nearby, holding her hand, his eyes red but full of relief. Maya was asleep in a small chair beside him, unharmed. Tara reached out weakly, her first words barely a whisper. Is she okay? Evan smiled gently. She's perfect. You saved her, Tara. You took the hit, but she's fine. Tears filled his eyes. You did it. Over the next few hours, everything blurred into questions, paperwork, and flashing lights. Police officers came in and out, taking statements. Frank stood near the door, pale and devastated. I don't understand what happened, he muttered to the detective. Donna, she's not the same woman I married. Detective Grant, a calm yet firm man, closed his notepad. Mr. Donovan, your wife and younger daughter were taken into custody. We've recovered fake documents from your daughter's purse, and witnesses confirm the attack. It's now a criminal case. Frank's face crumpled. God help us, he whispered. 2 days later, Tara was discharged from the hospital. Her wound was healing well. The doctor said she'd been lucky. The blow could have caused permanent damage. Still, every time she looked in the mirror, the faint mark on her forehead reminded her of that terrible night. Meanwhile, the investigation moved quickly. The police found that the receipts and bank statements Brianna had presented were completely fabricated, poorly edited digital documents traced back to her laptop. When questioned, Brianna broke down, claiming she only wanted to prove a point. But the evidence was overwhelming. Donna, however, refused to take responsibility. During her police interrogation, she shouted, cried, and insisted she didn't mean to hurt Tara. But intent no longer mattered. The bruises, the blood, and the eyewitness accounts spoke louder than her excuses. A month later, the trial began at the New York State Court. Tara, dressed simply, sat beside Evan and her father. The courtroom buzzed quietly as the judge entered. When Donna and Brianna were brought in, the room fell silent. Donna looked fragile, her face lined with guilt and rage. Brianna avoided eye contact altogether. The prosecution presented everything: the forged documents, the testimonies of witnesses, the police report, and Tara's medical records. When the judge asked for Frank's statement, he stood slowly, his voice breaking as he spoke. I sold my house years ago, he said. I gave both my daughters the same amount, $25,000 each. Tara saved hers. Brianna spent hers. That's the truth. My wife knew this, but she refused to see it. I can't believe my family came to this point. He looked toward Donna, his eyes full of sorrow. You didn't just hurt your daughter that day, he said quietly. You destroyed this family. Donna's lips trembled, but she said nothing. Tears rolled down her cheeks, and for the first time, she looked small, not powerful, not angry, just broken. Brianna sobbed uncontrollably when her turn came to testify. I didn't mean for it to go that far, she said. I just wanted Mom to believe I wasn't a failure. I thought if Tara looked bad, maybe she'd stop comparing me to her. The courtroom was silent except for her crying. After reviewing all the evidence, the judge delivered the verdict. Donna was found guilty of aggravated assault and battery, and Brianna was convicted of forgery and false accusation. The judge's voice was steady as he read the sentence. Donna Donovan is hereby sentenced to 4 years in state prison, without the possibility of early parole. Brianna Donovan is sentenced to 1 year in county jail and 2 years of probation. Gasps filled the courtroom. Donna buried her face in her hands, shaking. Frank closed his eyes, silently weeping. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed for comments, but Tara said only one thing. No one wins in a story like this. Justice doesn't erase the pain, it only stops it from spreading. Days later, Frank visited Tara and Evan's home. He looked older, tired, and weighed down by grief. I filed for divorce, he said quietly. After what Donna did, I can't stay with her anymore. I'll always love her as the mother of my children, but I can't forgive what she's become. Tara hugged him, both of them crying softly. You did the right thing, Dad, she whispered. Maybe now we can all start to heal. Months passed. Tara fully recovered, the scar on her head fading into a faint reminder of her strength. Evan continued working, and she resumed her freelance designing. Every evening, they'd sit on their porch while Maya played in the yard, her laughter filling the air again. One evening, as the sun set behind the skyline, Tara turned to Evan and said, I used to think home was just a place. But now I know it's the people who stand beside you when everything else falls apart. He smiled, wrapping his arm around her. Then I guess we've built the perfect home. And for the first time in a long time, Tara believed it, that after all the lies, betrayal, and heartbreak, justice had finally done its part. The wounds were healing, the past was fading, and her new life had truly begun. 7 months later, the same house that once echoed with screams was now filled with laughter again. Balloons floated across the ceiling, ribbons shimmered in soft pastel colors, and the smell of vanilla frosting drifted through the air. Tara stood near the kitchen counter, watching Evan hang a banner that read, Happy 4th birthday, Maya. Her heart felt lighter than it had in years. Maya ran around the living room, wearing a pink birthday dress and a glittery crown that Nancy had bought her. She stopped every few seconds to giggle, her curls bouncing as she twirled. Tara couldn't take her eyes off her. The sound of her daughter's laughter, bright, full, alive, was the sweetest music she could imagine. Frank arrived first, holding a big gift wrapped in blue paper. When Maya saw him, she squealed, Grandpa, and ran straight into his arms. He laughed softly, lifting her high into the air. There's my sunshine, he said. His eyes met Tara's across the room, and for a brief moment, they both shared a quiet understanding. They had survived the worst and made it here, together. Soon after, Nancy, Harold, and Olivia arrived carrying trays of food and more decorations. The warmth of family filled the house, not the kind of family Tara was born into, but the kind she built, one made of love, trust, and peace. Olivia helped set up the cake table, while Nancy placed a vase of fresh daisies beside the window. I still remember the first day I came here, Nancy said with a smile. This house feels completely different now, lighter, happier. Tara smiled. It's amazing what forgiveness and time can do. Evan came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. And love, he whispered. Don't forget that. She leaned against him, her eyes glistening. No, she said softly. I never will. The doorbell rang again, and Tara turned to see one of the neighbors holding a tray of cupcakes. "Happy birthday to the little one," she said cheerfully. "It's good to finally see everyone smiling again." Tara thanked her warmly, her heart swelling with gratitude. The party began in full swing. Maya clapped excitedly as everyone sang "Happy Birthday," her cheeks puffing when she blew out the candles on her pink cake. "Make a wish, sweetheart," Tara whispered. Maya closed her eyes tightly for a second, then giggled. "I wished for ice cream," she said proudly, and everyone laughed. Frank looked at his granddaughter with pure affection. "She's got your heart, Tara," he said. "And your strength." Tara's eyes softened. "I hope she never has to use it the way I did." As evening fell, the guests began to leave one by one. The house was a beautiful mess of wrapping paper, balloons, and crumbs of cake. Maya had fallen asleep on the couch, her small hand still clutching a half-opened gift box. Tara pulled a blanket over her, brushing a kiss on her forehead. She walked out to the porch where the sky had turned a deep golden pink. Evan joined her, handing her a cup of tea. The breeze carried the faint sound of laughter from the backyard where Frank and Harold were still chatting. For the first time, everything felt peaceful, not forced, not fragile, just quietly complete. Tara took a slow breath, watching the horizon fade into twilight. "You know," she said softly, "there was a moment that night. I thought everything ended. When Mom hit me, when I fell, I thought my story was over." She paused, her voice trembling slightly, then smiled through her tears. "But today I know it was the day my real life began." Evan took her hand, his thumb tracing the faint scar near her hairline. "You turned pain into something powerful, Tara," he said. "You made a home out of it." She looked back through the open window at Maya, sleeping peacefully under the warm glow of the living room lights. "I think she saved me more than I saved her," Tara whispered. The wind rustled through the trees, carrying the soft hum of the city in the distance. Tara leaned her head on Evan's shoulder, closing her eyes. The darkness no longer felt frightening. It felt like rest, like healing. Inside the house, the small metallic statue of Liberty still stood on the same table, polished and shining under the lamplight. It no longer symbolized pain, but resilience, a reminder that freedom sometimes comes from surviving the hardest chains. And as the night settled over New York City, Tara finally smiled with the quiet certainty that this laughter, this peace, this love, was the life she was always meant to have. Thank you for watching this story until the end. If it touched your heart or made you think about the power of family, love, and forgiveness, share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one of them. Don't forget to like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional and powerful stories like this one. Your support means everything.